All right, welcome back. This is part 2 of the InsightCM SDK training for 1.0. And in this video, I want to focus on data flow within InsightCM. So what I have here on this slide is our 4 subsystems plus an external historian. We have on the left our CREO application. In the center, we have our server. And on the right, we have our data explorer, the systems manager, which is the web page, and an external historian of some kind. Now what I want to try to communicate in this slide is that there are really 2 different channels of data, if you will, going from Compact REO to the server. On a lower level, the CREOs, they can publish tags, alarms, and files to the server. Tags and alarms are similar in data type, and they're treated in a similar fashion than files are. So that's why I say that tags and alarms are kind of one channel of data, and files are kind of a second channel of data. Now a tag, let's talk about a tag for a second. So a tag is really any single data point that's got a name associated with it. An example of this would be like RMS, or peak-to-peak, or CPU usage, or available memory, or ping response time. I mean, anything that's a single data point that you can name, that is, we would consider that a tag. Now, tags are useful because we can alarm off of them. So if the CREO is every second or 10 seconds or something publishing this RMS value to the server, well, on the server we can evaluate that for an alarm. Well, if the tag goes above 4, let's throw an alarm. So that's what tags are for. They're really for alarming. That's their primary use case. But you also can look at tags live on the systems manager, and you can see your RMS updating rather frequently. But a CREO also has the ability to throw an alarm directly from the CREO. And there's a couple reasons why you might want to do this. One is if you need the waveform to evaluate your alarm, well, you're going to have to do that on the CREO. You need access to the raw waveform, and so the CREO has that. So that's one reason why you may want to evaluate the alarm on the CREO and then just directly instantiate that alarm. Also, maybe you don't want to be publishing tags from hundreds of devices across your network and to your database on a periodic basis. Maybe you want to consolidate all of that onto just the CREO itself. So there are different reasons why you may want to evaluate an alarm on the CREO, and this SDK gives you the ability to instantiate an alarm directly from the device. Otherwise, you can just publish tags periodically, and the server will evaluate your alarm. So that's really one channel of data. Tags and alarms, they're similar data type. They're treated in a similar fashion. They are saved into this top database here. It's a Postgres database together. Then we have files. Now files are made up of waveforms and properties. Now here's properties are similar characteristics as tags do. So for instance, RMS could be a tag. It is a named data point. But RMS could also be a property of your waveform. And indeed, RMS can be sent and saved in both places. So files have properties like RMS or magnitude, like 1x magnitude and phase. All of that is bundled up into a file with its waveform, and that is transferred to the server, and that's saved. It's handled by a different process and saved in a different location. That's saved in its depot, which is basically just a directory where all the TDMS files are saved. Then you have Data Finder over here, which is indexing those files, and so that the Data Explorer can come in and create trends off of the properties in that file and do queries off of like time and channels. So one of the things that I want to that I want to communicate here with this slide is that the Data Explorer pulls all the data that shows up in Data Explorer gets pulled from Data Finder, which is connected to the file depot where all the TDMS files are stored. And one consequence of this is that data that you have published as tags and alarms, well, they aren't available to the Data Explorer. Again, the Data Explorer can only pull information that is in Data Finder, and that's only coming from TDMS files. Now, subsequently, data that is stored in a file, well, that's not available for the historian or the system manager. You can't look at file properties live within the systems manager, for instance. Or file properties are not available to be pushed to historian. That all comes from tags. Now, the one link between these two channels of data is the analysis service. Now, if you recall, I said that there was a VI from the last video. There's a VI that runs synchronously. Every time a file is transferred to the server, a VI is kicked off. The VI is opened. The block diagram is basically blank. You can put whatever you want on there, and that VI is then closed. You have the opportunity to open the data file, run some custom analysis, and then publish whatever you want from that file or from the custom analysis as a tag. So that is kind of the link between these two channels of data. It's this custom analysis service. Also, I should mention that the results of this analysis or whatever it is that you run on this block diagram of this VI, you can write that back into the file as additional properties, which means that they will be indexed by Data Finder and you can trend them in Data Explorer. So I hope that this is a beneficial slide for you. It's good to know where the data is coming from and where it's going, and all of the different players in InsightCM where they can consume data, where they can consume their data from. So a couple of key takeaways, just to sum up what was on this slide, is one, alarms can be evaluated either on the device or the server. So just to rehash, if a CREO is publishing tags to the server, we can create alarm rules off of those tags. However, we can also push alarm rules all the way down to the CREO, and the CREO can evaluate alarm rules and alarms directly and instantiate alarms himself. Tags and alarms are only visible through the historian and systems manager. You can't look at tags and alarms in the Data Explorer. And also features like TDMS file features are only visible through the Data Explorer. They are not visible through the historian or through historians or through the systems manager. If you want file properties to show up in in either of those two places, well, then you can use the custom analysis VI and create tags for those features. And finally, we haven't talked about configuration, but the server, another key responsibility of the server is to manage and push device configurations. So I think it's important, I think it's a good time to bring this up, that the configurations for each CREO is stored both on the server and on the device. However, the server owns the configuration. Now what this means is that we have local copies of the configuration on each individual CREO. And this is important because if a CREO boots up and doesn't have network connection, he still needs configuration so that he can start acquiring data. We didn't want to make network connectivity a requirement or a prerequisite for data collection. So he does have a copy of configuration there stored locally. However, every time he connects to the server, the first thing he does is say, hey, this is the version of configuration that I have. Is this up to date? And if it's not, then the server pushes the newest configuration out to the CREO. The CREO reboots and then starts collecting with his updated configuration.